very quickly, we'll go to our second guest, the Acting Controller General of Nigeria Customs Service, Bashir Adeniyi, who has said that there has been an increase in the smuggling of rice and hard drugs through certain parts of the country's borders. The customs chief warned that such smuggling must be curtailed to safeguard the country. In the meantime, the Semi-Area Command of Nigeria Customs Service said it has intercepted and seized various items with a total duty paid value of 1.8 billion naira from January 23 through September the 8th. According to the Customs Area Controller, Dera Nandi, who addressed journalists on Friday, one of the seized vehicles was laden with 4,530 liters of petrol. Giving a breakdown, the controller said part of the seized consignment include 9,550 kg bags of rice, equivalent to 16 trailer loads of foreign parboiled rice, with a duty paid value of 312.2 million naira.
We are all aware of the existing situation along our borders with our neighbor, Nigerian Republic. There have been attempts to move towards the southern flank using border areas around the northern part of Oyo State, around the northern part of Kwara State, and some part of Niger. So if you see what is happening around Shaki, around Chikanda, around Babana, you will see that it's an extension of the fact that people are trying to escape what is happening in the northwestern borders. Let me tell you that the authorities of ECOWAS, they have not changed their position regarding the closure of our border with Niger. These borders remain closed, and we have the responsibility to ensure its implementation. Nothing must be left to chance. We must effectively police the borders and ensure that nothing crosses that border, either inward or outward from Nigeria.
I am pleased to inform you that since my assumption of office as the controller of the unit, there has been ongoing effort to rejig the operation strategy of the unit with a view to ensure that it is largely driven by intelligence, technology, collaboration with relevant stakeholders.
Acting Controller General of Nigerian Customs Service, Bashir Adeniyi, joins me now to situate recent activities of the agency in proper perspective. Good to have you on this day live, Controller General Wale Adeniyi. I see you are in Mufti. But first, let's talk about this issue of smuggling in spite of border closure. Border closure, even in the northern part of the country, has not stopped smuggling of rice, of petrol, and all of that. Do you think that there can ever be a time when the Customs Service will be able to stop smuggling across Nigerian borders? Where is the leaky point? Where is where are we getting it wrong? Because you have just assumed office, you've been in the service your entire career, and then now in 2023, you are still saying smuggling is a big problem. Would that problem ever be solved, at least substantially?
Thank you very much. Happy weekend to Dr. Ruben Abati and all our viewers. It's also good to see you in suits on a Sunday. Smuggling continues to be a very big business all over the world. It's not just a Nigerian problem. And once you have a fiscal policy that says these items and that items are not allowed in a particular customs territory, you always find a situation where people will want to walk around and circumvent such laws and bring it. So it's actually very, very difficult, if not impossible, to stop completely smuggling. What we can do is to reduce the spate of smuggling into our customs territory, to make business a bad business for
those that are involved in it, to make them suffer heavy losses, heavy setback, and that's what we've been trying to do since my assumption of duty. I saw it as a very big problem initially, and we've had to review our enforcement strategy to ensure that we ensure that we give smugglers a good run for their money. In terms of what you saw on that program, yes, rice, petrol, they continue to become very, very attractive to smugglers, into Nigeria. We try to raise the awareness of Nigerians about the acute the insecurity that we face. Insecurity is not just about physical security. If we don't have enough food to feed over 200 million Nigerians, it's some kind of insecurity. So food security is very important, and this is what government is trying to achieve. This is what this fiscal policy aims at by controlling the importation of a strategic food item like rice into the country. Petrol product, PMS, we already know the political economy of PMS in Nigeria. So the subsidy is gone, and we're trying to save as much money as possible. And so if some elements continue to smuggle this across the border, they will be undoing our economy, and they will not allow us to achieve the objective for which the policy was made.
Okay, I mean, we have removed fuel subsidy in Nigeria, and yet the smuggling of petrol continues. Many Nigerians will wonder why that is the case. And then the smuggling of rice. At a point, the Nigerian government said we were going to close the border. We closed the border to encourage local production. That in itself also has not stopped the smuggling of rice. Although many Nigerians will say, well, we eat rice here. If we are not producing rice in Nigeria, let them smuggle rice because it's staple food in Nigeria. But what do you think about this strategy of closing the border? Should the emphasis be on closing the border or trade facilitation, which was one of the issues you discussed when you visited the Republic of Benin recently?
Yeah, that visit recently is leading to a return visit of our colleagues from the Customs Administration of Benin Republic. They are already in the country, and tomorrow and the next few days we are going to be discussing these issues. The border closure is not about rice smuggling alone. It's not about petroleum smuggling alone. It goes beyond smuggling of these items. I think the major issue about the closure of the border or the coordinated border management is about security. We're trying to improve, we're trying to manage what goes back and forth across our borders. And over the years, we've been engaged with our neighbors, particularly the strategic neighbors on the western flank, Republic of Benin, on how we can jointly approve the issue of border security. Some modest success in the past, but most of our relations has been characterized by the failure to comply and obey most of the agreements that we've had with Republic of Benin regarding the issue of how we jointly manage our borders. So rice, second-hand vehicles, petroleum products, transit goods, most importantly, all this collectively, they speak to the issue of security across our borders. And then we know that there are increasing incidences of terrorism, banditry, human trafficking, currency trafficking, that is happening around our borders. Most of the time, Nigerians who patronize Cotonou ports ostensibly use those ports as ports of transit, and they neither subscribe to the regular transit codes that we all know, They do not pay duty to Nigerians. They do not record their trades. So these are all issues that have been on concern over the years, and the agreements that we had with them were not obeyed. So this was why Nigeria government took the difficult decision in 2019 to close the borders.
Okay, but let me ask you this. Now, look at Niger. When ECOWAS said, oh, we're closing the border against Niger, I think you were quoted in one of the reports that despite that closure of the border, trade across Nigeria, Niger, and smuggling just continue. Do you really have what it takes? Is the Nigerian government making available to the Nigerian customs what is required to do the job? What are the challenges that you are facing as someone who came from within the system to rise to the level of the Controller General?
Well, it's a very complex situation. The Nigerian border is, in terms of distance, all of 4,100 kilometer plus. In terms of porousness, very wide expanse of land most of the time. There are no proper delineation. In terms of very close cultural affinities between the communities that are living along the borders, it's sometimes very, very difficult for you to know who is a Nigerian and who is a Nigerian. So sometimes we have some of these problems creating or limiting our capacity to adequately manage cross-border crossings. But then the political will is there. We have very strong support from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, not just to enforce the decision of ECOWAS heads of states, but also in our interactions to let me know that customs is indeed very important in strategic part of its agenda for regional security, for national security. So we can really count on the support. And both in spirits and in words, he has demonstrated readiness to give us all the support that we need to effectively manage Nigerian borders, not just on that northern flank, but also on the western flank with Benin Republic and on the eastern flank with Cameroon. He's had a number of interactions with his colleagues, fellow presidents, and during those interactions, he had made it very, very clear that customs occupies a very important role in his regional agenda.
Well, let's talk about revenue. When people hear customs, what they think of is, oh, customs will generate revenue for Nigeria. And for this year, since you took office, the target has been about, is it 1.96 billion naira that customs is expecting to generate. And yet, on the back of that, we have had that some banks, 2 banks specifically, that has been the story in the last 2 days, have been playing pranks with customs revenue. They are not making the relevant remittances and all that. Okay, what we hear is that customs has said, okay, these 2 banks, we have suspended. Please, can you name those 2 banks that have been playing games with our money, as the average Nigerian will say? We need to know, because your agency talked about transparency and accountability. The key thing about transparency is to be transparent, to disclose. Name these 2 banks. Tell us how much they have been sitting on. 10 billion naira, in fact, I remember now, that they have taken away from the Treasury single account. And then, would there be consequences for their conduct? We'd like to know.
Let me start from the simpler one, and that's the later part of the question. There would be consequences, definitely. If you have an obligation to keep government money and you do not remit it, or using your word, if you play games with those funds. Now, the revenue figure is actually bigger than that. We're targeting about slightly above 3 trillion. So the figure you are mentioning about the target is how far we have gone. We've done almost 1.89 trillion already at the beginning between January and August. We're still a little bit in deficit of almost 400, 500 billion, but we are optimistic that before the end of the year, before December, judging from what we have seen in the last 2 months, in July, from our average collection of slightly above 200 billion in July, we've gone up to 230 in July, and then in August we did 372. So we are indeed in good cause, and we're not going to allow any bank to be a stumbling block for us. The money has actually not gone to TSA. If it has gone to TSA, of course, we are not going to have any issue. But then periodically, as part of our strategy to keep track of what we have collected, to follow the numbers, as you say, we discovered during our reconciliation processes that the total money that is in the Federation account, in the TSA, was at variance with what we have collected. And that was how we realized that a couple of banks have not totally remitted what they have collected. There is very serious engagement going on with those banks, and the engagement is yielding dividends. Between the time that we discovered this and now, we've gotten almost 7 billion reconciled. So the idea of naming the bank is good, but then it also has its downside. So we are interested in importers and agents who may have opened transactions along the line and they are caught up in this mess. We don't want them to be negatively affected. That's why we just wanted to use that warning first. So that would be the first part of the strategy. If this fails and we do not get the remittance as much as we want, then we will activate the second strategy, which might involve name and shame, if you like, and then taking other punitive sanctions against them.
Well, the thing is that you know, in this country, naming and shaming is a very standard expectation. People will say, how can two banks, just sit on our money? I use that phrase again advisedly. And then we don't know, those two banks. You are covering them up. That's a contradiction in terms here, even when you talk about transparency.
Dr. Abati, if I understand, if we talked about reconciliation, in the process of reconciliation, my word against your word, you've collected 30 billion, we've seen only 20. And then he comes back and says, no, I have actually collected 25, not 30. So there could be some, there are the teams from the banks and our team sitting together to check figures and things like that. That's one. Two, I made it very clear that, this is going to be an approach that has so many parts. So this is one part of it. We watch how this goes. If after some time we're not making as much progress, and we are certain after our reconciliation that some monies are missing, of course we will go ahead, and because there's no way we are going to delist them if we do not name them. We've done this in the past. We will go ahead once we have all our records straightened. We will go ahead and delist them. So that will also be that would involve naming them.
Okay, the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, former governor of Osun State, Mr. Gboyega Oyetola, settling down, visiting, going around, has said that his ministry is going to engage the customs to improve productivity, to generate more revenue. Has there been any form of engagement in that direction since Minister Oyetola made that statement? And how can customs help with regard to blue economy?
Well, stakeholders were upbeat. They were really very expectant when they learned about the appointment of the minister to be in charge of marine and blue economy. And there's so much that the customs can do together with that ministry. I've had some conversations with him since his appointment, and we look forward to very, very constructive engagement to ensure that his appointment would create opportunity for customs and the right environment for customs to do better. We need a very efficient port system for us to do better. And one of the things that he has said is that we need to take a second look at the number of boxes that we examine physically. As we speak, I've been in some top-level discussions with a team from the World Bank that are assisting us to review our approach to risk management, and with the objective of seeing whether we can migrate a number of our compliant traders to the green channel, so that we will not need to deploy so much resources of the port to physical examination and inspections of this container. So the minister meant well, and so if we get it right in those premier ports, in those big ports that he has visited, we're going to get it right in Nigeria. We did some analysis and we discovered that there are just under 20 companies that are responsible, that accounts for 80% of our revenue. So these are literally the goods that lays the golden eggs for us. So the treatment, our approach in managing the risks associated with such companies must be different from those other people who we must deploy all the resources that we have to ensure that they do not change our system, or they do not undercut, or they do not, come with some dangerous importations into the country. So we're taking his charge in good faith, and we're going to see it as a challenge to improve our system, our processes, our procedures, to ensure that we give these good guys a good experience in the port. We process their goods in a much faster way, so that we will be able to generate as much revenue as we can from them.
Okay, CJ, as we begin to wrap up, two quick questions, because we have very limited time now. Quickly, one, what are you doing about discipline among the rank and file in customs? Because there's this general perception that anybody that wears a customs uniform is just interested in, having an access to the national cake at the borders. What are you doing about discipline? And then the second thing, the one that concerns ordinary Nigerians. This story about, is it called vehicle identification number that is now being charged on used cars that are imported into the country. I mean, the aspiration of many Nigerians is to also, ride a car, whether it's a used car, it is called Tokumbo, or it is called something. So people are saying, now it's even becoming more expensive for the average man, to wash a used car and also put a car on the road. What is the truth about this matter for all aspiring people who want to at least ride a car before anything happens to them? Those two issues.
In terms of discipline, we have zero tolerance to indiscipline in Nigeria Customs Service. One of the first things that I've done was to take a second look particularly at our enforcement strategies, because most of the problems that we get has to do with the operation of our checkpoints, the conduct of our officers during the checkpoints, and the fact that the question of whether we actually get very good seizure returns from the number of checkpoints that we mount on our roads. And, very headlong, we tackled that particular issue. We have reduced considerably the number of our checkpoints, and we have provided a new standing operating procedures for the operations of those checkpoints. We do have a standing committee in the headquarters, the disciplinary committee, which has been reconstituted, And this committee has been given the powers to expeditiously take on all issues, reported issues bordering on indiscipline, and we are ensuring that people pay the maximum price associated with the offenses they have committed. Shortly before I came into office, the new Customs Act came into being, and this act provides, very, very heavy sanctions against not just stakeholders, but also officers who act in ways that are not in compliance with the provisions of the law. The laws on the importation of second-hand vehicles have not changed dramatically or drastically. The laws have not changed, the tariff rate have not changed, even if the environment under which we do it have changed. Some of the things that have changed has to do with the implementations of the VIN-REG. It's just for us to manage more transparently the values that are given to vehicles that are imported into Nigeria. And we have also discovered that there seems to be a kind of a drain because a number of people import these vehicles through the land borders. And when they import them through the land borders, well, import is not the right word because there is a subsisting laws that ban the importation of bringing in vehicles through the land borders. They are actually smuggled. And so when these Tokumbo owners, when they try to register it through the back door, either by cloning declarations that are made from the ports, they always meet a brick wall in the implementation of the VIN-REG, and perhaps this accounts for some of the complaints that they are having. But now we are, our collaboration with the road safety, Federal Road Safety Corps is at advanced stage. We are going to have some kind of interface between our two systems such that if you do not legally import your vehicles or you did not pay adequate tax and duty on them, you find it impossible to register your vehicle. So we're having those number of collaborations with all agencies of government, so many agencies of government that are involved in managing cross-border trade to ensure that Nigerian governments, in terms of revenue or security, do not become shortchanged.
Well, on that note, I would like to thank you very much, Acting Controller General of Customs, Bashir Adeniyi, for joining us on This Is Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News.